The final regional stages of OWCS 2024 have concluded, determining which 8 teams will compete in the Grand Championships at DreamHack Stockholm. 3 of those teams are from North America, and while we already knew Toronto were more locked in than whoever took the Nico Godhand Twitter account and posted like it was their 9 to 5, there were still slots to play for. We got the best NA match of all time in the grand finals, and insane storylines that make cinematic masterpieces look like macaroni art. Starting off with Fluffy Dreamland vs NRG Shock in the group stage, where Ryan, a young man with humble origins, just looking for a new story to tell mom at the dinner table, makes sure NRG gets Puss in Boots type panic attacks anytime they hear the name. Right off the bat, the first round was all Fluffy through and through like some perfectly made buttermilk pancakes. NRG's only source of percentage whatsoever was through some heroic ball play from Kellen. The other 2 rounds could have gone either way, but NRG managed to come out on top. However, we soon learned this was not the norm. New Junk City was a complete 3-0 beatdown, with its peak being Chime removing PGE, UV aimlessly sending his ult away from the point or anybody else really, and Ryan sticking Rack, who didn't have it in him to pop Rally and live with like 5 HP to give the Juno ult some sort of value, which is a bit of a shock to me, because this is the same backline that watched Kellen get pulled in like a leashed dog in the backyard and then sent a nano boosted Rack to 1v5 in the front lines. But to be fair, that did not work, so maybe the learning algorithm is just doing its job, but you could not teach this next move. On Watchpoint Gibraltar, a lot of teams send their Tracer to point for some cart presence, but Fluffy Dreamland do things different. Astro said he could handle it himself on the Reinhardt and went on a solo mission to push the payload while the rest of the squad fought on the high ground. And you might be thinking, damn, is it worth it to fight 4v4 without your tank? Well, if the goal is to push the point about the same distance as normal and also reset tank ult charge 2 minutes in, apparently it is. Maybe the real motive was to trick Kellen into thinking that touching the cart as tank is not worth it, encouraging him to C9 and miss the point entirely with the Nano Winston play. He ain't even jump on anyone in particular, bro is lost. From there, NRG had a solid defense and stopped Fluffy on 3rd point, highlighted by Scissors being so dialed in, not even his medieval tin cans connected via rope ass internet could stop him from getting this 5k. During that lag, he must have beat that router with a hammer to make sure he got back in time to finish out the clip. You know how it is, gotta put the montage first. He also found the time to make sure Ryan knew that even though he's Jamal's son, he can still be the father. This performance inspired the prime gaming eagle to want to get involved, and he hit some nasty ass shots. And this made me realize that Ryan gotta be the least sneaky player to ever do it. It's one thing to not be a part of the Sneak Nation, but his presence is like going into the kitchen at 4 AM, banging pots and pans as you're just trying to get a bowl of Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Now that NRG finally had some momentum in this series, they headed into second with over 4 minutes on the clock and got stopped in their tracks. Chime on the May was too casual with it, finding cross-map picks like it wasn't a big deal, while Ryan came through with a large and in charge pulse bomb on Rack to make sure he could not rally the troops, putting Fluffy Dreamland at match point, where Tree told Robert he was not a part of the gang, and NRG were able to finish the map with time, sending them to extra rounds. After a compelling chokehold on their defense, Fluffy Dreamland were situated to end it right then and there, needing just 1 tick in 3 minutes. But it came down to one big ult fight, where Chime would go for a flank blizzard to try and seal the deal, only to get removed by a rallying Rack attack and ultimately draw the map. On its own, this play is already crazy, but we have received intel that Chime is using a Dollar Tree headset that just decides to turn off whenever it likes, so he could not hear a thing. Bro hit the full Beethoven LARP to produce this masterpiece. The most unreal part that I cannot understand is upon hearing nothing, zero, no fight plan whatsoever, his first instinct was to hit the flank blizzard play. That was his default positioning. From there, it was a close Runasapi, but a clutch flanking bot steal from Astro resulted in a decent lead for our heroes, and they came out on top. top. This fluffy Dreamland win meant that in the actual bracket, NRG would have to face off against the Toronto Defiant in the first round. And Toronto had their own problems in the group stage, where Lenny was unavailable versus Shikigami, forcing Danny to step in and get absolutely violated by Xianjun and Taejong. They saw little Timmy pull up to the arena and did not hesitate to dunk on him with the quickness. You kinda gotta give it to him though. They got hands rated E for everyone. It doesn't matter if you're a literal newborn baby, you are going to hold this pulse bomb. And Shiki actually went up 2-0 off of this, but luckily Danny was freed from this hell, Sugar Free made it back to play, and Toronto handedly got the reverse sweep win. The only other match from the group stage I briefly want to talk about is Citrus Nation's 3-1 win over TSM, which featured some all-time plays. This includes Chronic TPing back onto the map and into mines for an EMP Jax, Neutral being unable to reach the wall and looking to save his abilities for Overwatch 3, Zeb, an original member of the North American Horse Council, hitting a disgusting spear on a recall that was most definitely 100% intentional, and finally Liar, escaping from the fight and somehow missing the easiest jump that even a complete parkour noob could stick. This character has slow falling, bruh, which he apparently remembered after it was too late. Bro kicked the railing, but this is like the only one in the game that can't be broken, so he tried to scale the wall, but he knew it was time to let go. It's just Jove. This was a decently large win for Citrus, because instead of facing Nightmare in the first round of the bracket, they got the undoubtedly easier matchup in facing the third worst team coming out of Swiss, RAD X Avidity. However, it appears as though that just does not matter. From what I saw, the backlines were moving alternatively. And I say from what I saw because Map 4 was a top secret government conspiracy. There was no official broadcast and the replay code on the dock did not work. They got that Area 51 type security. I have no clue what's going on in there. What I do know is that on Map 1, Nenwai and Scuffed had a Skarm Bliss 2v3 type stall in an elongated first fight to wait for reinforcements and get the initial cap. This is only possible because Wub went on a mission to kill both supports before heading out, letting RAD AV win the long game. With no recovery available, it was only a matter of time before Citrus ran out of juice. And this was the first fight of the game, so imagine the possibilities if this was a Map 5 high stakes fight scenario. But hold on, don't think too hard, because we have the answer. After mostly surviving the nation's ults and coming out 3v4, Nenwai and Twolz leap into action to prevent CN from reaching the checkpoint with Rally. This gave Bun the opportunity to slice up the backline like she's playing Fruit Ninja and put Citrus Nation in a tough spot. They just lost their best chance to threaten the lead and got no ults with under 3 minutes to go. Plus, Luke Minnow has to live with knowing that the Bun Blade scared him so bad, he started exploring the map to escape. Bro had to stop what he was doing and pick up rock climbing as a hobby for the one time. I swear this part of the map has been used like 3 times total. But that wasn't the only RAD AV play to make someone take up a new hobby, because earlier in the map, Zeb got brutally staggered for a good 12 seconds and had to do NFL running back drills just to end it. There was a point where he was at 30 HP, and by the end of the stagger, he passively regened back up to over 200. I wouldn't wish this upon my worst enemy. He ain't even get ult charge out of this, bro. Somebody put him out of his misery. This is too cruel. But anyway, this resulted in a RAD AV upset win, putting Citrus up against the loser of Toronto vs NRG in Lowers round 1. You don't usually see any of the big 3 in NA square off so early in the bracket, so this was an unexpected highlight of day 1. Toronto started off strong with a dominant first round, but there were some flashes of brilliance, specifically from the PGE Tracer. I swear at least once a tournament on some random map, he gets the rare drop rate performance, where his neurons draw from the experiences of all prior Shock Tracer players in some My Hero Academia one-for-all ass sequence. Unfortunately, even with a sneaky UV nade assist, that one play wasn't enough to win a fight, let alone a map against Toronto. However, Kellen Balling and U Vonak on the Zen was good for a round. Toronto's scrims have simply not prepared them for the enemy Zen popping Trank and booking it into their backline. Someone started this engagement at full HP, used both cooldowns and ult just to die without a trade as UV kills 2. After this, fuck scrims. Toronto's next 8 to 10 block will be spent on the ranked ladder trying to Q-snipe the GOAT attack 0. I mean, that's gotta be the best way to prepare for the opposing Zen walking around like he's making sure your backline is up to code. This brings us to Runa Soppy, and for for the first half of this map, NRG were leading. They must have been strapped in for a lengthy VOD review after the horrors of a fluffy Dreamland loss and came in with a plan. Tree was looking sharp on Genji, and they were getting more value out of their Terra Blade combos than Toronto. They were up so much that even this atrocious play wasn't a concern. Attack whiffed Spear on Merit's High Noon, but decided in his mind palace that, you know what, he actually hit it. So he continued on, and because his team was standing in a single file line directly behind him, he ate multiple fully charged bullets and died on the spot. With Toronto coming back the other way, they popped their unmatched Ray and Lenny got to work. But this really isn't too bad because they still have considerable meterage and are favored in the ult economy. But then, with a minute to go, NRG used 3 ults, don't find a single kill, and watch as someone walks them down, takes the lead, and eventually completes the map. This team could not purchase a win on Runasapi. So surely, we don't see them run it back later down the line. That would be insane. That would be insane behavior. This brings us to map 3, where NRG had an alright offense. They gave themselves a minute and a half to cap third and ended up in a situation with a decent shot to do it. And then they just aren't on the point, man. Now, I know they weren't favored to win because Rupal has Trank and Rack died right as he was about to get Rally, but something about Attack sprinting to the backline to hit single-digit bullets in overtime just does not feel correct. I don't want to see this, bruh. After that display, NRG practically rolled over and told Toronto to take the dub. I don't know why they even bothered with this fake rotation nonsense. Just put the fries in the bag. Lenny and Merit got this shit packed up already. You do not have to do all this. In the end, it wasn't a terrible showing from NRG, especially when Scissors is MIA, probably because the 2 strands of copper wire couldn't maintain his internet connection or something. But like, how about a map though? Unfortunately for NRG, they had just 30 minutes to cope with the loss before heading straight into losers round 1 against Citrus Nation. And this is not enough time for PGE to go through his streamer stages of grief and find himself in Emo SpongeBob. In his distress, he didn't realize he lashed out at Robert and told him to fuck the fuck off. Bro had to do a double take to understand what that truly meant. But by then, it was too late. The damage had been done and Robert was out of there. It was all good though. NRG won map 1, and this tragedy woke up PGE just in time for an important Widow duel on map 2. You could be a Harvard-educated mathematician and still could not teach this devious under the car angle. I don't even want to think about what would happen if he kept snoozing, because on top of Chronic looking kind of scary in his own right, they were dealing with levels of self-sabotage unseen since Black Sludge Bisharp hit the builder. This is absolutely the worst of the 3 NRG C9s in this video. And this is how you know it's not just chronic pain, it's terminal. Last time, Attack was on the wrong block, but Kellen and Tree crossed state lines to try and deal with the Widow, and not only did Chronic live a long and healthy life, Citrus capped with a significant time advantage. However, this was the push Kellen needed to follow up on a huge nade from UV that made Citrus look extremely purple, or dare I say ultraviolet even. As long as UV was around to do the heavy lifting, Kellen was ready to exert his Korea level gameplay on the poor schmucks of the inferior region. So a few big overtime plays and PGE's previously mentioned powerful performance meant NRG was up 2-0 heading into King's Row. And with this Juno clip from UV, we have enough data to confirm that he is capable of making plays no matter the situation. You could force him to play on a Wiimote steering wheel and he'll still power slide into the backline to kill 2. And while that helped to stop Citrus from completing the map, it didn't matter because NRG couldn't get to 3rd point now that they were in an honest Orisa mirror. Plus the map geometry didn't let the Dark Lord use an angle that a protractor couldn't find, letting Chronic straight up hit his shots with no funny business involved. So following the map loss, NRG went back to their tried and fraud Runasapi to exercise their demons. Once again, they got a decent lead, but every time the bot went back the other way, CN would add a few meters to mount their rail system and threaten the comeback. For a second there, it was looking kinda shiced, because even though NRG were pushing the lead even further when OT started, Citrus won back-to-back fights and all of a sudden the movie that just released was getting a same-day sequel. Actually, losing this fight would make it more of a remake than a sequel. Actually, losing this would have made it more of a remake than a sequel. But this time, Tree channeled his inner Jinka and let the Ray Blade rip. It was the difference maker in a quadruple support alt fight and stopped the comeback with a meter to go. This was huge, because with how circuit points are weighted, if NRG went out sad this early in the bracket, they'd have a better chance of convincing Super to come back for 3 pennies than make Stockholm. Now let's get back to some original ideas in winner semifinals to see who will lose and face off against NRG in a fight between Fluffy Dreamland and Nightmare. No, it's just Fluffy Dreamland, and we get the revenge match of a generation. While Chime made some noise on New Junk City with chilling May gameplay, it was only an inconvenience on the way to a Nightmare 3-1 win, advancing them to winners finals versus Toronto. But that doesn't mean it wasn't worth watching. This series included one of the most insane sim TP saves in Overwatch history. Chime has put himself in a bit of a situation. He got no cooldowns and is closer to all 5 members of the enemy team than his own. So Fluffy launched a whole ass saving private Chime operation to get him out of there, with the most integral part being Admiral's double agent play to whipshot him into the TP. And this match was a great opportunity to demonstrate the symptoms of early onset dementia, because I got no other explanation for what Astro is doing here other than raising awareness. Bro, you are 174 HP. You cannot be doing all that. And while that's a wonderful display, maybe the real awareness we need is a wet floor sign, so players like Seeker won't accidentally fall off the map. I know it doesn't happen often, but even once is too much, which means it's time for the rematch, NRG Shock versus Fluffy Dreamland. But this time, the stakes have been raised. In map 1, Ryan was nowhere to be seen, so NRG thought they were safe. And while they did win out the first round with the help of a Supercell Slam Terror Surge, they could not have been more incorrect. But you already know Astro was not about to let attack outdo him under any circumstances. So he stepped up, ran NRG back to wherever they came from, and took away Tree's ability to wall climb like Aang stripping Ozai of his bending entirely. The last round was a nail biter, but Chime came up massive on the Genji, wreaking havoc on the backline in the penultimate fight, and then shutting the door with a prime Snorlax level body block to force the C9. Your eyes are not deceiving you. A 4th NRG C9 has hit the video. If NRG got situated on point, they had odds to win the fight. But UV flew into the side of the night market and it cost the whole map. However, Gibraltar was a whole new demon, and the Shock were here to make a statement with PG Freak in full force on the Widow. They had a solid first point defense and were feeling themselves so much, Rack hit the 2v4 rally with Kellen to commit to the bit. Now, my sources are telling me that 4 is a far larger number than 2, and as such, it did not work. But getting them to OT is quite good, and why is PGE on May? Surely I did not just witness him whiff Wall and Blizzard. Who authorized this transaction? But it goes deeper than that. All of NRG started tweaking at the same time. UV sprinted to the backline and Trank because, yeah, that's the whole point of the ability, and Kellen left him at his earliest convenience. Bro was looking like DJ Casper the way he was hitting the cha-cha slide to get out of there. As you can imagine, that wasn't great for the defense. And now Fluffy's time was decent for 3rd point. And it was getting decenter because Kellen offered himself as a mid-map snack to keep the energy levels high. That is an absolute Winston of protein, dog, so not a soul is going hungry in Dreamland. But that wasn't enough for Renko. After serving a gorillion pounds of food, his greedy ass still wanted more, and he started running NRG's pockets while they were chilling in their own home. Nobody is safe. At this point, I think it's time to address the paranormal entity in the lobby. Ryan has returned. This kid plays Tracer like he has an IV drip cocktail of caffeine, Adderall, and Ritalin inserted directly into his heart. He moves so different that when I spectate his gameplay, I have to double check to make sure the replay viewer isn't on 2x speed. I've never seen anyone move a mouse like they're trying to get the world record speed run for aiming. And I'm not talking some Kovac shit. I mean physically moving the mouse. So it goes without saying, when Fluffy decided to hit the rare Gibraltar spawn hold, Ryan had a fresh IV bag ready to go. You know those driveways that got a speed bump at the start for some unknown mysterious reason? This was kind of like that, but instead of a speed bump, Fluffy set up a toll booth Shock had to pay to leave their home, and the price was 2 whole minutes off the clock. Despite the 2016 quick play hold working wonders, it all went to waste when Renko hit the 1,000-yard stare at PGE's Deadeye for a solid 9% chip. That chill moment when the high noon looks so tough, you just gift bro the kill. This gave NRG 3 minutes to complete second point, and they probably needed twice that just to get through the door. The Dreamland government is looking big and greedy because they set up another toll for NRG to pay, and this time they did not have the required funds. And you know NRG are gonna take the game to Runasapi when they're down 0-2. Fluffy Dreamland can't make them pay to leave their house if the whole map is their home, and Tree was doing everything in his power to stop them from getting evicted. It's like he was working 2 full-time jobs, doing the dishes, taking out the trash, and reading the team bedtime stories. And what does he get in return for this stellar Genji performance? A thank you card? Maybe a slight chuckle at a patented Tree Hawk Tua joke? No. He got an astronomical tank differential that will be passed down through the generations. While Attack is spectating, doing the bare minimum by existing in the general fight area, Astro is running laps around NRG like it's the Triple Crown in order to get these kills. Then bro pulls the ultimate disrespect and starts deadlifting his ops in the 1v2. And you can see the exact moment that Attack realized he had to make some kind of play. But he quickly found out he is not that guy. Once you whiff this spear, you forfeit any and all rights to have influence on the outcome of the fight. Then he doesn't fortify to tank the Terra Surge better, and I don't care about ping dog, just click the button, it isn't a quick time event. And now that it's a 1v1, he wants to be the hero, but it is too late. There's a time to step up and a time to hang it up, and I think we know what the clock is saying. And that's just the beginning. When Fluffy had the chance to take the lead with 2 minutes to go, Astro turned into the best goddamn closer Runasapi has ever seen. He pulled up, speared Attack, and personally told the NRG backline to get the hell out of his lobby. It's a good thing Attack didn't use either of his 2 cooldowns to stop the spear and touch the point, because Tree came through and NRG handedly won the fight. After this, neither team gained any more meterage, which means this was the deciding fight of the series. So, Fluffy Dreamland sent Shock home off a 3-0 victory, which meant there was a path for NRG to miss Sweden entirely if TSM got second place. Speaking of TSM, let's talk about their long and treacherous journey in this bracket. Due to their loss against Citrus Nation in groups, they were lucky enough to dodge the RAD X Avidity upset and instead squared up to Nightmare in the first round. And TSM actually squeaked out a close map 1 win in a large team effort, where even their Destructibles were making huge Matumbo type shot blocks. Unfortunately, from here on out, their defense was not stopping shit. Riker ain't looked twice when Infected just walked through with that Doflamingo ass stride and teared up the backline. When running it down, bro was putting that Winthrop education to good use, because with the way he slid in, you could tell he assumed no friction was on this plane. By the time map 3 rolled around, Zira had so many Genji 3Ks he started achievement hunting like he's on New Game Plus. Bro ain't even trying no more. Went for the 360 deflect kill just to feel something. Luckily, TSM had a perfectly orchestrated losers run, while the other side of the bracket was an all-out war between Citrus Nation, NRG Shock, and Fluffy Dreamland. TSM pulled up to the Thanksgiving dinner and gladly sat their ass down at the kiddie table with Shikigami and RAD X Avidity, grateful to the Overwatch gods for a relatively free path to the losers semifinals. But before that, we have the ability to go back up, unlike Lampent, to the winners finals and see Toronto vs Nightmare, where on map 1, Infected literally came out swinging. He was more than just a guy exerting that big point press with a rectangle. He got off the rarely seen defensive goob as he shielded Vega's beat from someone. Then he whipped around for a deceptively large shatter to truly secure the fight win. Someone looked at the shield between him and his beat and my man straight froze. He ain't moved for about 3 seconds. Bro could only watch in horror as Infected cut the life support. At the end of it all, this whole round was 2 long fights with Nightmare not really winning either of them, but instead stealing and maintaining point control until it was 99-99. Then they ended up with the beat advantage and went obscenely quick to get the round win. So even though someone in Merit were making big money plays, they were using an entirely different monetary system. They pulled up to the bank with 2 fight wins of pure, honest Winston gameplay. But in a Reinhardt economy, that's barely enough for a Team Timmy's run. But round 2 had 0 gimmicks, just a good old-fashioned cash app delivery from the Toronto Defiant executives to gain an edge in the first fight. This shit was so blatant that his own teammate had to stop what he was doing and hit up the Esports Integrity Commission immediately. Like, what are we doing here, bro? How does this even happen? The Ilios property managers must have gone crazy on the floor buffer, because I don't think this is Seeker drunk driving. Okay, he might be a little inebriated, but to be fair, Merit's Bob was also a victim to the absurd buttering of the greater Ilios well area. And unless he's sipping on that good oil, it must be on the custodial staff. Luckily, Seeker was fully prepared for a booze cruise. If it came down to it, he could pass the EMP sobriety test and use it on this general area in his sleep. This time, it resulted in a massive 4-man hack, which was all Zero was looking for. He could handle it from here. Sugar Free was being put on fraud watch in the 1v1. On the round deciding fight, Zero was hunting him down like the invincible snail. Lenny knew he was cooked, and once he hit this "don't take another step closer" ass pulse bomb, we all did as well. But the job was not done. Zero had to show us what a real pulse looks like and then clinch the map to put Nightmare up 1-0. Then Toronto took Nightmare to Gibraltar and they got a bit creative, to say the least. The Seeker Reaper, or the Reeker as it were, which definitely checks out here, was not the move. They got through first with the help of a well-placed headshot from, of course, their Ashe player Zira, which stopped the recontest, but they had little success from there. Relative for a Gibraltar attack, Toronto made quick work of it. I mean, playing into Merit on a pure hitscan map has never made Alt F4 look better. The only way for Nightmare to get value here was to play for the clip dump. Runasapi had a completely different vibe, because for the first time in the series, we had an Orisa mirror. And yet, Toronto still had the lead for the majority of the round, except not when it mattered. CJ built his raid just before Rupel, so Toronto had to give the lead with seconds to go. But to be honest, that ain't really matter anyway. Zero once again clutched up with a raw 3k to win the map. The most interesting part of the map was Admiral feeling himself off of getting a single kill and then deciding that he and CJ could take on the world. Bro deadass rallied this. He thought he had that hidden Junkenstein's Lab Super Demon break build or something, I don't know. But this was low-key a genius play, because it encouraged Rupel to do his own brig int and potentially stop Toronto from expanding their lead. With Nightmare at match point, Toronto's big dog, Coach Kasores, had to turn to the last page in his coaching document, which simply wrote, "Lock the fuck in." This moment marked the end of Nightmare for the rest of the series. They were cooked. It was over. Not even Seeker, hiding in a bush on some old-time 101 prop hunt shit, could steal a point off the Defiant. Now, I could be wrong, but it might have had something to do with bro stomping all up in that shrubbery. Bro thought he was all sneaky in the cowboy boots when he really be sounding like... Bro is tap dancing mid-game. Get those shoes off, bro, but not like that though. Midtown was even worse. Rupel started testing out his shoe Halloween costume, doing a little method acting to fully embody the character, while Merit was strictly business, fulfilling the duties of his 9-to-5 with efficiency, increasing shareholder value, and making it all look easy. He was almost expecting more of a challenge. Zira ain't even tried to step up because he knew he'd get cooked too hard. This meant that after a not very close 5-map series, Nightmare would wait for the winner of Fluffy Dreamland vs TSM in losers finals. The first thing immediately obvious about map 1 is the comically plentiful amount of oil lathered up all over Lijiang. Diddy looks like a well-adjusted citizen compared to whatever went down here. Chime does it all. He TPs the team out, swaps to Pharah, and still lands a direct conkital hit onto Riker. At the same time, King gets Vision to do his dirty work and takes the TP to also find a victim. This wasn't anything out of the ordinary until Riker got sent off the map 2 times back to back in 30 seconds. Do you understand how slippy a map needs to be for a hero with 2 different abilities that could stop this to take a trip to spawn twice before the point even unlocks? This is unreal. But wait, there's more. King came through again to even the boop score, and that was it. The sign the US government was looking for to storm the game files for this unlimited oil source. This nail biter triple 99.99 map ended up being a fluffy Dreamland W, and honestly, I'd be a bit disgruntled if the Orisa that got super shamoned off the map twice still managed to get the W, so God bless. For map 2, TSM went to Hanaoka, which invited Ryan into the lobby. There was no setup required for this schmixening. He came off the bench with a briefcase in hand, fully prepared to do business, which let Fluffy come away with the first 2 points. After this strong performance, they went on to get completely and utterly dominated the whole rest of the map. It's like once the game got to their final point, TSM started pushing back harder than the Mercy Mafia when someone mentioned she is not a good hero on Twitter. And if you can tap into even a fraction of that power, the map is all yours. Fluffy Dreamland needed to put a stop to that right away. So Astro played an Orisa map that would make even our horse leader Bernard shed tears of joy. It's coming down to the dying moments of the map, with TSM threatening to take the lead. Our hero and horse council hopeful is patiently waiting for when he's needed most. Then he charges in unimpeded by Riker and channels his inner Toto as he holds the line. This secured the map win and put Fluffy at match point. This whole play was cinema, from telling Riker that he cannot hang in the back line to being an unstoppable force to keep that point. Astro was on top. Between the NRG matches and everything else, I think it's fair to say that Astro is fit to be a high-ranking member of the NA Horse Council. So, by using my freshly obtained 30,371 horsepower worth of influence, I will make it happen. However, this status does not mean the game is won, especially because the Orisa mirror was less plentiful on Midtown. However, this also means that it's time for Ryan from the O to get back in the action and cause big problems in the lobby. It's so crazy that he hits this play to get Fluffy to 3rd point while seemingly tweaking out harder than James Wilson, not on antidepressants, but on speed. Be that as it may, Rocket's not about to let the next up player walk all over him. Even though he couldn't stop them from making it to 3rd point, he made damn sure they weren't going very far. As for handling their offense, Vision had it all under control. He's been consistently solid throughout the series, but on this map, now with his tournament life on the line, he was different. Bro was here for one single mission: to kill the enemy team with hammers. He knows it's not only about how many hammers you use or how strong they are, the timing is key. And now that I'm looking at how fast he clicks that right mouse button, I'm confident that if he took his talents to Cookie Clicker Esports, he might just be the best. A lot of players wish they had this kind of passion and commitment to the hammer. Like, he's clicking it with only 1 bullet in the chamber. That's GOAT right there. Which of course means that we have to go to an insane map 5 on Rialto. Fluffy Dreamland pulled out all the stops on their defense. Like, they were using Maywall to isolate the enemy, but not in a normal way whatsoever. It's like Vision accidentally found a speed running tech to clip through walls in a regular playthrough, and he does not want to be here, dog. He was completely unprepared for the difficulty spike of this skip. Time bled out quickly, and with Vision going down, King had to pull out the blade to touch, which signaled the end of TSM's offense. Haven made light work of everyone running it down to point and put the good citizens of Dreamland in a prime position to take the series. However, it took them till OT to capture first, which means Fluffy had a minute less than TSM did for their 2nd point. After just 2 fight losses and an incredible bridge whip shot, Fluffy were staring down the last fight of the series. Vision doesn't want Fluffy to get too comfortable and opens with a high noon that gets walled off, but he still manages to break the break shield. Hold on, I think I saw something. As we inspect, we see Astro hit the Terra Surge. Oh my days, what? Bro is pleading his case to the Horse Council like, Your Honor, please imagine how cool it'd be if it worked though. Now there's nothing to contest Riker's Terra Surge on the point, and it's a complete disaster. This might be one of the absolute worst teammate self-sabotage miscommunication griefs of all time. Oh yeah, and the guy who started this whole thing, you know, forced the Maywall and the Terra Surge, He is still alive and well, taking a looky-loo at the backline and diving straight in onto Michael Phelps type shit. So just like that, Dreamland is no more, and TSM advanced to the top 3. This is where the accumulated circuit point situation comes in, as the top 3 here does not necessarily equal the 3 NA teams to go to the international finals. Toronto and Nightmare were well locked up early in the bracket, but TSM only make it if they win this next game. Otherwise, NRG are in the cut, which means NRG were watching like this the entire game, helping their horse reach the finish line and praying for Nightmare to come out on top. As it turns out, Nightmare are really fucking good, and this beatdown could barely be classified as a warm-up scrim, which means NRG are lucky enough to get to go to Sweden in November. And now the moment we've all been waiting for, the Toronto vs Nightmare Grand Finals revenge match. We once again start on Ilios because the Defiant always pick this map, but also they're big mad about their loss on it and want the run back. But I don't think the first round is what they were looking for. Nightmare's ult cycle is going berserk as they win against Toronto's Juno ult with a spin blade maneuver, and then when someone tried to step up in OT, Infected said not today. Bro went flying so far, I thought for a second his ult turned him into a helicopter. While his guys ran down the Toronto core, Infected had other business to attend to, so he went back and shoved the 2024 MVP straight into a locker. Then he dropped the bag on him just to make sure someone really understood who was in charge. But the Orisa diff wasn't enough for Infected, and he took what all Korean main tank players hold near and dear to their heart: the Primal Gene. After somebody was done fumbling around in the Nightmare spawn, Infected showed him what's really good. He leaped well past Rupel to dodge the sleep dart, then pulled an illegal U-turn to come back through and full-on jump him with the whole squad. Oh, and by the by, this is the final fight of the round, and he's still got one more in him. The only reason this round was close was because of the incident. In the winners finals, I said that Seeker could EMP this area while blackout drunk, and you know what? That's true. But this time, he ain't even catch a ghost in it, dog. Once Rupel knew that he was playing against an EMP this building one trick, he fraud checked him directly. Map 2 begins with Nightmare on some G shit, running the Break Ball Zen Widowmaker comp, and it was finding huge value right away, as it encouraged Vega to give us the first and only Rajax of the video. The big sphere pressure from Ball and Zen on multiple angles was simply too much for him. Meanwhile, CJ was so chill to just sit back in this room and watch small Torontonian boys flock to him in droves. Things were working pretty well until Merritt decided he's had enough. Bro TP'd in place for the invincibility frames. He was ending this here and now. And I don't know if I've seen Merritt get mad before, but this is 100% an angry man's gameplay. He got steam coming out of his ears. After the ball was gone, Nightmare lost control. And I mean, someone went for a genuine lined up Poké Bomb in big 2024. Nobody is doing that unless they're really feeling it. Unfortunately for him, Seeker was far too nonchalant in the bus stop to ever die to this try-hard ass Diva Bomb. The comp adjustment led to Toronto evening the score, but Lenny being mad disrespectful in the Tracer duel did not hurt. In the pulse for pulse trade, his stick was better, he got another kill besides, and he backstabbed Zira. Like, we get it, bro. There ain't no sticky like a Lenny sticky, but did you really have to do all that? Speaking of unnecessary procedures, why did the whole Toronto Defiant organization band together to commit war crimes on Admiral? He was just doing his own thing in this game, and they bombed him while he was asleep. Then once he woke up, they bombed him again. What? Actually, it gets worse, because Lenny specifically woke him up so he could get double bombed. Map 3 started with a Seeker takeover, and my theory is that once he went into that bus stop, he was really waiting to go next map. And now that next map is here, it's over. After a convincing fight win, Seeker got nefarious, put the cowboy boots in sneak mode, and made Merritt think twice about walking anywhere, really. Then he put the boots into racing mode and booked it back to the point for a crucial kill onto Sugar Free with Blade available. And you know, it only makes sense to finish off the point with a classy 3k to clean up for a total of 5 final blows in the last fight. After a quick 100-0 from Nightmare on the second flashpoint, things were looking dire for Toronto. But to Sugar Free, that's just a clock striking Lenny time. He put on a legacy performance. No, a Lenny performance for the rest of the map. He's been making grown men emotional since 2018 at least, and today is no different. This shit is beautiful, bruh. It felt like every other fight he had a new blade, and it was always, without fail, money in the bank. He was truly doing it all. Like here, he dashed a point to trigger the overtime, stayed there while his team took a leisurely stroll over, then he popped blade, killed 2, and still made it back to be the touch. That is unreasonable. Nobody should be doing this. And the multi-kill clips, they just keep coming. It doesn't matter what the ult state is for either team. It could be a Ray blade, a Raw blade, a Terra Surge blade, no fucking blade. It doesn't matter. We have a clip of it. He filled out his entire Genji decks in this map. Max IVs, fully EV'd, competitive ready. It's good to go. He's the best. He's the best. I need a full Coach OC breakdown on how it's possible to become Jesus on Genji for a map. But you know what? I don't think I've seen Jesus hit a ghost dash before. I'm just saying. Something to think about. The best part about all this glaze, all this honey being poured, is that he didn't win the fucking map. He didn't win the map. Seeker decided to check back in on the game and realized it was 2-2, so he got to business. First, he popped High Noon and declared billions must be zoned, which gave Nightmare the cap. Then he took down the #1 most wanted criminal in Nightmare City, which allowed him to meander around the backline and just kind of chill out to find his next victim. As it turns out, everybody was his next victim. So Toronto lost the fight, gave up the flip early, matched Nightmare's Juno ult, and staggered. All of that adds up to Toronto must win this fight with Sugar Free's Lone Blade into Terra Surge, Rally, and Zero's Blade. They basically just said, you know what, Lenny, we know that you can turn water into wine, so how about you do it again? And you know what? While you're at it, get the point touch for us. Like, huh? The crazy thing is, if his team had lived longer than 3 seconds, I think he might have done it. He still got his one. This loss was the perfect opportunity for Toronto to go back to Gibraltar in hopes of another all-time Reeker performance. But now, things are different. Nightmare is not the same team they were 24 hours ago. Sources indicate that Infected went to bed listening to Fearless and Gushui highlight reels, and upon awakening, he contracted a rare disease where he cannot drop a juggle. This, along with Zero's slick stick onto Sugar Free to stop the recontest, helped Nightmare get a healthy time heading into second and eventually third. The 4 minutes on the clock didn't matter. Now that Toronto had re-established a place to hold, it was not easy. Getting to the backline was tough enough, but once you did, it did not mean shit. Sure, Zero lived here, but after getting styled on like that, what's even the point? Not to mention that while this is going on, someone just killed 3 in the backline, so there is really nothing of value happening here. Someone mightn't have anything like a juggle going on, there's no clown college diploma in sight, but this is still good, honest work, and somebody has to do it. With Nightmare not completing the map, the goalposts were set, and Toronto were ready to start kicking. First, Rupel came up big on the Ana, sleeping Infected before he could carry Merit off into the sunset, and staying with him, holding his hand the whole way through. Then, he went on the offense, looking to make a play on the backline and spinning his little gun while he does it. He lands the 3-point bank shot, and Merit finishes the job. I really wanted to make sure I highlighted that, even though no one's gonna care in about 2 seconds regardless. After that pivotal kill into Admiral, he just continues to game. Folks, it's Merit's masterful montage right before our eyes. Merit really be moving different when there's money on the line, because I know his ass is not hitting this many shots in scrims. I don't know what happened in between rounds, or if anyone had some words of wisdom that included the prize pool amount, but Merit was listening, I can tell you that for free. Infected tried to jump him, but even with the combined knowledge of the juggler jamboree flowing into his consciousness, he could not fully stop this train. The juggle was hella nice though, and Merit can't be too upset about getting a free of charge, comprehensive tour of the Watchpoint facilities. Rupel even got a little souvenir from the gift shop. Now, this map 5 was a bit of an outlier in the series because there was some weird, unexplainable phenomena going on. Like right here, someone thinks he's a big guy, body blocking Infected from walking out, but like, he is in full view of the entire enemy team. So if anything, Infected is body blocking him. You can see the moment that someone realizes he is a polar bear in Arlington, Texas, but by then, it is too late. And this other moment is perhaps more explainable, but definitely worse, because we are in extra rounds and Toronto have a minute to do anything of value. While the backline has a bit of a Genji issue, someone is duking it out solo in the front line, and right there, we can see where there might be a bit of a rift. Rupel goes for some classic self-sabotage and gets down to 20 HP, and then he does not orb someone. He thinks about it, he takes a look, and he says, you know what? We're good. And I have terrible, terrible news. We were not good at all. But what's Vega doing in all this, you ask? You know, he's healing up the guys, just not the guy. Bro turned his back on someone like the situation did not exist as long as he wasn't looking at it. Other great moments from this map include someone killing Sugar Free with his own spear. Yup. Just gone, removed. And Infected having so much PTSD about Merit that he runs past the entire enemy team to jump him. Of course, there were still the regularly scheduled Lenny moments, but with Toronto having a subpar defense and the horror that was their extra attack, it'd take more than Jesus Free to make this map close. This absolutely had to be a wake-up call because it put Nightmare at match point, tournament point, and North American champion point. At this point, Kasor's absolutely had the coaching document review team running at maximum capacity, looking for something he wrote, even a random scribble, an insightful doodle, just anything that could help them lock in and stop the man who seeks from walking around like he owns the place. The solution they came up with was going to Esperanza for map 6. And I gotta be honest, watching Seeker kill 2 on an Ash dive did not inspire confidence. And it definitely didn't help that Vega missed the speed ring onto Rupel. However, this misplay might have been a blessing in disguise because it convinced him to ditch the Juno coalition and have some real playmaking potential on Alari. After the swap, Toronto defied the meta, took control of the game, and never looked back. This additional pressure gave everyone on the team some more room to breathe. Merit got more active on the map with a little confrontational flank action and stopped Seeker from walking anywhere. Someone literally got more active and started running some straight cardio and primal. You know what Juno ult is crazy when a max HP primal Winston is not touching it with a 10-foot pole. He'd rather lock down the perimeter and get that mid-map workout. Once he got the blood flowing and everything calmed down, he came back in for that cleanup. I don't really get it, but jumping around and turning Esperanza into Trampoline World was good enough for a fight win into an orbital ray, so shout out the GOAT. And who else could end out this map but Vega, the man who sparked it all, hitting a devious flank. There is no time for anyone to contest him, so he launches the unmatched power of the sun directly at Infected and it gets eaten. Oh dear. While this might look bad, the ult accomplished all it needed to with sheer aura. CJ will be hearing about this on Korean Uncoachable. He was shaking in his boots at the prospect of a Toronto dive and prematurely raid, basically sealing the deal for a goated map 7. We begin with an old friend making a reappearance because even in the grand finals on map 7, somebody has buttered up Lysandre. This is getting outrageous. Somebody has to put a stop to the buttered up bandit. His deeds dictated the start and end of this round, which by the way, Toronto only obtained 5% on. We are at a new location and whatever worked the last map is not gonna fly here, especially with Seeker playing Aim Lab's reflex flicks off his high noon. This meant Nightmare were 1 point away from victory and they kept up the momentum heading into round 2. Seeker and Zera were playing as a well-oiled machine, feeding off of each other's kills, making for a 1-2 combo more potent than the OW Pro to Freak pipeline. The Toronto DPS line saw this and said, no thanks, I'm gonna do my own thing. And then they started taking turns dominating fights. Merit began the process, opening up with a high noon kill and then slowly picking away at Nightmare while there was no Seeker to shoot back. Lenny, on the other hand, said fuck it, we blade, and ran it down for a respectable 2k trade. With the Juno ults out of sync, they traded fight wins back and forth until Toronto was holding the point for the last fight, and they were staring down an unmatched orbital ray. Knowing this, the Defiant followed Lenny's lead and felt his heroic aura for a team-wide fuck it we ball sprint into the enemy spawn. During this, Zera had to flank all the way around to touch point, which left Toronto free to take the 5v4 and bring us to the ultimate deciding round. And this right here should count as an official diagnosis that Seeker is clinically insane. They were probably fight planning in spawn, and Seeker just says, you know what? I'ma lock Widow on some G shit. Watch this. Bang! Gone. And this guy Zira is always on go. He heard the kill and took care of the rest of them with zero hesitation. Bro packed up the room on that Toy Story speed. He'd be moving faster than Woody when there's footsteps coming towards the door. Clean that shit up like his life depended on it. Now, a problem with this Widow selection is that he did not participate in this next fight at all. I understand trying to keep your distance, but he's acting like Toronto got that DreamHack Stockholm Super COVID already. Sugar Free is an entire Olympic-sized swimming pool away, and he's still grappling to spawn. Like Sal Volcano takes less precautions to avoid germs than this. And now, with no movement, he's gotta walk his ass to point so he can at least fulfill the participation requirement of the course. And now that he's finally completed his 1,000-year journey, the fight's already over, bro. He makes sure to get a couple of shots in just to say, you know what, he did do damage in that fight, but he's so over it, he don't even want that free 15% participation ult charge on the next hero. He wants to start fresh. After this meta's patented 15 ult fight results in a Nightmare win, we have more Seeker shenanigans. This is a genius play as well because Nightmare have no ults to use. However, Sugar Free is very intimate with Seeker's tricks, and that shit is not fooling him today. There's no footsteps or anything like that. Lenny just read his life. And this isn't accidental. He had to look through a tree to find him, which means this is it. The final fight of the series with everything coming down to this moment. Seeker has 2 skulls on his screen, and just one button press can stop Toronto from winning every NA event this year. So he gives it a click. And just like that, the greatest Uno reverse card of all time was played. You already know what type of time we on. From out of nowhere, Sugar Free comes through and steals victory out of Nightmare's hands. Yet he still is not done. Bro got one more blade in him. And right when that weapon was pulled out, Toronto became the back-to-back-to-back-to-back NA champions. And all of that is my best and worst plays of the greatest NA Overwatch tournament to ever do it. Have yourself a damn good one. Deuces.